Welcome to Cook the Garden podcast, your weekly audio source for delicious and easy garden fresh recipes and growing tips. I'm your host, Ginain. Let's cook the garden. Hey, friends. Welcome back to Cook the Garden podcast. I recently had the privilege of sitting down and chatting with the amazing Chef Liesha, a true force to be reckoned with in the culinary world. With a bachelor's in nutrition, she's not only a talented chef, but she's also a mother, a foodie, personal chef, and a justice warrior in the mission to break the monopoly on food. Chef Liesha's journey began in a loving family where she witnessed the magic her mother created in the kitchen, despite their own experiences with food insecurities. Inspired by her mother's talents, she followed in her footsteps, joining the Navy in high school and honing her culinary skills while cooking for thousands of sailors. Her passion led her to work in various settings, including hotels, restaurants, a casino boat, catered events, and even a sorority house. Today, Chef Liesha is making a significant impact by dispelling myths, challenging misconceptions, and combating the inequities that we've all witnessed and that's been ingrained in the Black community. So in today's episode, Chef Liesha is sharing her expertise, her experiences, and insight into the process of root to stem cooking. Together, we'll explore how this culinary approach can transform your relationship with food, promote sustainability, and ignite a movement towards a more just and inclusive food system. I truly enjoyed this conversation so much, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Definitely check out the show notes for links to Chef Liesha's website and all of her social media accounts. Enjoy this episode, friends. Let's get into it. All right. Hello, Chef Liesha. What's going on, girl?
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you just coming on with me and agreeing to my shenanigans. I know I reached out to you via Twitter. And, we've had some discussions before. Just for those of you listening, a little bit of background. So Chef Liesha and I connected on
Clubhouse.
What is it? Clubhouse, right?
Clubhouse.
Yeah. And so we have some really great conversations, meal planning, food, and growing your own food. And I thought we really gelled. And so
Yes,
I've been off of it. I know are you still active in
Not very much. It's kind of slowed down a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we continued the conversations and, we follow each other on Twitter and, I've been doing this podcast now for a few months and I'm just glad I reached out to you. I said, guys, for those of y'all listening, I reached out to Chef. I'm like, how do you feel about root to stem cooking? And she's like, girl, that's my jam. So thank you so much for just saying yes and joining me today. I think we're going to have an amazing conversation. But before we jump into root to stem cooking and all of that good stuff, we want to know, okay, first of all, do you have a garden, Chef? And if you do, what are you growing right now?
Yes, technically I have a farm.
Okay, let's get to it.
I used to grow food at home all the time until I started working on a farm. And so now I do most of the growing at work just because it's just so much more space and I'm there all the time. So I have a little bitty tiny garden at home, but a 6-acre farm at work. And right now we are gearing up for summer. So of course we've got melons started. I've got some herbs, some tomatoes. I'm a tomato fanatic. Tomatoes, cucumbers, okra. Okra is one of my favorite things to eat also. I know it's like a thing for some people, but
I love okra.
So lots of summer squash and everything in between. I'm really excited about summer season.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, first of all, a garden any size is amazing. So, you say you got a little garden, but hey, a garden's a garden, girl. As long as you are growing things Look, it's great. But you talked about was it 6 acres? 6 acres?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So you mentioned that with work. So can you talk a little bit about what you do and all of that good stuff? I know you do a lot. That's a very open-ended question.
It really
But
is.
as
For
far
me,
as
it's like, well, in relation to the six
yeah,
acres,
yes, yeah, we want to know. We want to know.
I am the farm education program manager at the Edible Schoolyard Project in Stockton. So we have a farm there that is our community. It's a community garden. We call it a farm just because it's so much space and we have chickens and saying farm is fun. Um,
Gotcha.
but yes, so I am the one responsible for the field trip program and the volunteer program. And basically, we create the curriculum to teach children of all ages. I have kindergarten all the way through college age students who come to learn how to grow food, who learn how to make soil, balance the pH of soil, tend to chickens, learn how to take care of chickens and trees and bees. And also, they learn how to cook.
Ooh.
So we take them from seed to table. That's really the mindset. Their experiences from growing to actually cooking and enjoying it with friends and family. So it's really exciting work.
Wow, that's amazing work too, and such impactful work. And I love that you said, you teach them how to farm, right? But then there's that gap that I've always noticed just kind of talking to people in that, okay, now what do I do with this
Hmm.
zucchini that just came out the ground? And so you're kind of making that connection and teaching them now how this is how you prepare or preserve. And I love that because I think that is a scary piece for some people too, is knowing what to do with your harvest. So I love that you're teaching them and you're teaching them early. That is the key. So man, kudos for that, chef, because that's dope. I just have to say that's just amazing.
It's really I did not envision myself in this position, to be honest. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I pretended to be a teacher. I taught my little brother and sisters and and all of that. But I never saw that I would be doing it in this way. And it really is impactful work because you can tell the difference of young people who have had these experiences. And with the health disparities that we have in our communities, it's really important that we get a connection with the healthiest food as possible early as
Absolutely.
possible. That way we don't have a bunch of adults who are saying, I don't eat that. I don't eat that. I don't eat
Mm.
that.
Wow. So powerful. Oh my goodness. So talk to us a little bit about you're doing that and you do a whole bunch of other things too. Um, can you talk a little bit about some of the projects you're doing now? I know you're in the food space. You're a successful chef. Talk to us about what you're doing on that front. I know you're also a personal chef. Like you do it all, girl. So give us a little bit of a little taste of some of the other projects that you're working on.
So some of the slices, I've really dug deep recently into digital products. One of my passions has always been to write and really creating digital products in the form of meal plans, pamphlets about managing chronic health illnesses like type 2 diabetes and blood pressure and things like that have been really, really important to me. I have a degree in nutrition and communication. And so that was my thing. Like I committed to like pretty much disseminating all the information that I learned to the community. So all of my digital products are very inexpensive for that reason as well, because I want them to be accessible to the community with the information that people really need, the tools. So outside of the digital products, I'm still doing prep meals for clients. As a personal chef, I have events that people hire me for. I don't do the large events anymore because I tell people all the time, even though I will be 46 this summer and still cute and fabulous, I am old in the
Yes.
culinary space, and I don't want to schlep and make 100 plates of anything anymore. So small events for the personal chef work. And what else? I have a podcast called The Mindful Chef. And again, because of the nutrition degree, the culinary degree, the wellness background, and my own personal health and wellness journey, I like to talk to people about theirs and really shine some light on important issues like food security, health disparities, systemic oppression in health and wellness space, and all that kind of stuff. I have a spice line. I'm on a break right now because I just moved, so I have to like reorganize everything. But Oakland Girl Spice line is my jam. I create low sodium and salt free varieties of spice blends and teas as well. And yeah, so those are just a few of the things
Wow.
that I do.
When do you sleep?
I'm getting better about that, actually.
Yeah.
Part of my wellness journey has been to embrace a slower pace and
Yeah.
really learning to chunk out my work and be very picky about what I do and where I go. Because I do speaking engagements all over the country too. And that's been really fun to travel, but also I'm really good now about saying no.
Yeah. No, there's an art to saying no. And it is a complete sentence, believe it or not.
Right, because we're
um,
so used to giving like an excuse afterwards or
yeah,
another, and then that just gives people an opportunity to come up with a way to solve the problem when the problem really is you just don't want to do
exactly. Exactly.
it.
Look, I am right there with you. It's something that I'm working on as well, and it's very much a part of your mental health as well.
Yes.
So yeah, what you're saying is totally resonating with me right now. So thank you for mentioning that, and I need to check out that podcast because a lot of what you talk about on that podcast, I'm super passionate about. So I will definitely include a link to the podcast and all of your websites and social handles and all of
Yes,
that in
thank
the
you.
show
And then I'll
notes.
get you on my show. We can
Ooh, would love to.
we can cross paths. I think that would be cool.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I'm all about, cross promoting and working together. I think we're passionate about a lot of the same things. And so, there's power in numbers, right? And collaboration. So yeah, let's
Absolutely.
do it.
There's room at the table for everyone.
Definitely. All right, so let's talk about root to stem.
Yes.
Where do we begin? So I actually asked a few of my friends in our Cook the Garden community, what are some of the questions, or what are some questions that you have about root to stem cooking? And most of them were like, what's that? So, can you talk a little bit about what the concept of root to stem cooking is?
The concept of, for me, the concept of root to stem cooking is it's rooted in sustainability. It's rooted in a zero waste mindset, and it is something that is very much natural to Black and Indigenous folks because we have a connection to the land in a way that some other people do not, especially in America. I can't speak for other folks, but here in our nation, it's really invigorating. It is using the entire carrot, the top and the carrot itself. So you would make pesto or some type of sauce. You can call it pesto or you can call it something else by blending the greens of the carrots to actually make a sauce to serve on top of the actual carrot. It is sauteing beet greens and serving that next to a roasted beet. It is taking your collard green stems and putting them
Mm-hmm.
in a jar of pickle juice and making pickles
Mm.
with them while eating the cooked down version of your collard
That's
greens.
my favorite thing, by the way. I love me some collard stems and I will pickle them babies and I'll just eat them straight out the jar.
Yeah, it's really understanding that every part of the vegetable that is edible has a place on your plate and not wasting it. And it's just transforming the way we look at things. A lot of the times when you ask me about root to stem, one thing came to mind that actually had to do with animals as well, but it was just this idea that most of the time, a lot of the habits that we have in the kitchen, as far as like something like removing the stem of the greens, is not for any other reason than texture,
Mhm.
uniformity,
Mhm.
it's a personal preference. Like when I cook greens for myself, I will leave those stems in there and cook them stems down too. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
it. It is just, it's a decision that you make, right?
Right.
In whether you want to use that part of the vegetable or not. And I feel like sometimes we start to adapt these habits that are after, let's say, two generations, we'll start to see the effects of these decisions that we did for convenience factors
Right.
and not necessity. And that's what we're seeing with animals in particular. So there's a lot that goes into understanding how to use the entirety of nature's bounty.
Oh, that's so beautifully said too. And it's a beautiful thing, right? I mean, my goodness. I mean, nature cares for us in so many ways. And I feel like there's so much that we haven't tapped into. And so, what you're saying about like the carrot tops, look, I love putting those carrot tops into my pesto because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, either like I don't have enough basil or I just maybe want a different flavor profile. I'll throw in those carrot tops and they are delicious. Okay. They're so good. But just the concept of just utilizing the entire plant. I don't know. There's just something so, I don't know. I can't even think of the word. Just,
It's sexy.
yeah, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. It's sexy. That,
That's
you know
what
what?
we
I will
call
take
it in
that.
the culinary world. We call it sexy
Yes.
because there really is no reason not to,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I think that's the thing when we start to look at it in that way. There was a meal that I made with my team at work. We went to our one of our partner farmers and we wanted to really just love on them, right?
Mhm.
And so I said, listen, I'll make us a meal, you just give me whatever you have ready to harvest and I'll cook it. And that was what we did. And one of the things that, I think I did sweet potatoes in three ways:
Mm,
by actually cooking the greens of the sweet potatoes,
yes.
as well as the actual potato. So, I mean, I sauteed the greens and then I made a chimichurri with the greens to put on top of our locally sourced lamb, and then we had the roasted sweet potatoes on the side. It brings a depth of flavor to your food when you actually utilize it in more than one way like that. And it doesn't have to be like super overly thought out. Chimichurri is a fancy way of saying you put some oil and vinegar, salt, pepper, and garlic in with something else and
Yep.
made a beautiful thing,
Yep.
So we don't have to overthink it just because there's like this cool name to it.
I love that you said that. I really do. And you mentioned it a little bit, but you know what or how does root to stem cooking or the technique? How does it affect flavors of your dishes or even the texture of it? You mentioned how you utilized the sweet potatoes, but you also had sweet potato greens. So did you make that together? How does that how did it impact the flavor?
What's so interesting is that these ideas just come to me. There's no real forethought, to be
Mm-hmm.
perfectly honest. I think it's from the ancestors, if I'm being frank. Um, I thank God that I have the mind that I do because I was in a farmer's market one time and I saw these beautiful greens. I didn't know what type of greens they were, and I bent over to smell them. Everything I have to smell, and I was like, whoa, this smells a little bit like. And then the lady looked at me and she said, yes. And I said, it smells like sweet potatoes. And she was like, those are sweet potato greens. And I said, I didn't even know you
Oh,
could eat
wow.
them. So I tasted them raw at that moment, right? And it's just one of those types of things where the fragrance of it alone brings
Mm,
something, right? Same thing with carrots. There's that little hint of that's familiar, but not
yes. Right.
when it comes to all of these different, different vegetables. And I sauteed the sweet potato greens with onions and garlic and a real good olive oil. And that
Mm,
was the side dish. I removed the stems because they were a bit tough and I didn't want to cook the greens that
mm-hmm.
long. But I really love to scrub the sweet potatoes, leave the skin on, and slice them fairly thinly, and then just roast them with a little bit of salt and crushed red pepper and butter. So
Oh my
that was the
God, that
side
sounds
dish.
amazing.
That was the side, that was the dish. I had the sweet potatoes next to the sweet potato greens, and then the chimichurri that I made with the other side of the greens had crushed red pepper, smoked salt, red wine vinegar, and olive oil, and a little bit of garlic, and then put that on top. And it was just the perfect complement. We had lamb with that meal too, and I reduced some red wine and balsamic vinegar, and kind of made a sauce out of that. And again, I just think that it was the layering of the flavors of the
Yes.
plant that really highlighted it all together.
Right.
That made it the sweetness of the sweet potato, the little bitterness of the vinegar in the chimichurri, and then the smoother texture of the sauteed greens with the sweet onion was a nice
Oh my
balance.
goodness. Oh my goodness. I am so hungry. Look, okay. Guys, this is like my lunch hour right now. I'm I'm sitting here talking. I'm like, oh my goodness, she gonna make me go and cook a whole meal. But no, that sounds absolutely amazing. And when it's that fresh, it really doesn't need much, right? Like it really does not need much at all. Like because what you want, like you want that flavor. You want to taste that flavor. You don't want to, just over season your stuff either. So when it's that fresh, it really
I
doesn't need
can't
much.
stress enough how much we over season our
Oh
food
my
right
goodness. Yes.
now.
Yes.
Like, I really cannot, it's so wild how we over season our food. But there is a thing. So if you do have access to the fresh ingredients, of course it's going to be even better, you know?
Right.
And that's why it's so important to connect farmers markets, and teach growing food because it's very easy to grow potatoes. It's very easy to grow a lot of things. You don't need a lot of space. You don't even need to have the type of weather we have here in California to be able to grow. Like, we are blessed because we can grow lots of things all year round,
Right.
but it's not even necessary to do that to have an impact on your plate and on your health. So I think that's the other thing. Like, when we get the better quality food, we can train ourselves to understand flavor that is complex, dynamic, and has less salt and fat and sugar, and we'll feel satisfied. So that's the other part of the root to stem cooking, is being able to appeal to all of your senses is how
Mhm.
you achieve satiation. Oh my goodness, I can't say the word today. You are more satiated when you
Mhm.
have a balance of flavors and textures happening at one time. So I noticed for myself, like, I would feel more satisfied with a meal if I had salty, sweet, crunchy, umami, and all of these other things happening at once, with the flavors, with the textures, that I wouldn't eat something and then immediately be looking for something else to sort of like, I won't be hungry
Right.
again in an hour because I will have touched on all those key points that what my body and my palate is looking for.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. No, that's really what you're saying right there is absolute facts. Um, and I wanted to also touch on you mentioned uh goodness, so much. My mind is going crazy. um, so you talked about like even just having access to locally sourced produce, and how do you source your ingredients, and do you work with a local farm? You're a farmer yourself, but do you work with other local farmers? What are some ways people can get access to
That's
fresh
an
or local?
excellent question.
Yeah.
Most of us have access, very limited access in time and resources. So I am aware that I am in a sort of privileged place because of the work that I do. I do have access, and I also have a car and the time and the
Hmm.
ability to go and get what I need. So before I share this, I want to preface that with saying I know that this isn't going to be the case for everyone,
Hmm.
because it's really important to acknowledge that there's an imbalance there, right? So I do source from local growers, and I love CSA programs. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and lots of small and large farms have CSA programs locally all over the country. And what you can do is sign up to receive a box of produce every single week, every other week. It just depends on you and your family, and they have different price points. So let's say a $30 box for a small family, or one person is enough for a week or two, depending on how much you eat. And typically, the growers will just provide an assortment of what they have available in season, and it's delivered right to your door every single time. So that's one of the most popular ways. Another way is to shop at farmers markets. I love farmers markets because most of the farmers are not from very far away. You'll get some that come from a couple of hours away, but it's that's about as local as you might be able to get in some metropolitan areas, more
Right.
urban spaces. But even some grocery stores, some local stores are now starting to understand the importance of sourcing a handful of items from local farms. So there's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy that goes into that. So when
Yes.
we see that there are local products in stores, in your common grocery stores, just know that it took a lot for them to get there. And the more that we support by purchasing from there, the more the demand grows, and then we'll be able to see more of that type of stuff in our stores.
Absolutely. Use your voice and use your dollars. And I love that you said that because it is a very political, um, I don't know, just it's a lot. It takes a lot for locally sourced produce to end up at your local grocery stores. And so the more we support and the more we use our dollars, and use our voices, let them know, let your local grocery store know, hey, I'm looking for more locally sourced produce. I see you have XYZ here from this local farmer. Please keep it up because that's something that's important to me. Um, so
Yeah.
definitely use our voices, use our dollars, spend them wisely, and let's start making that impact. And hopefully we'll see more and more. But when I do go into my local grocery store and I do see a local farmer being supported, or, locally sourced produce, it makes me happy.
Hmm.
It makes me happy. So absolutely. Um, you know, as we're talking about, access and different ways that you can have access to locally sourced produce, what are your thoughts on frozen frozen vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I love them. I absolutely love
Me too.
frozen fruits and vegetables. What people are not often aware of is that preserved foods are not inherently evil, they're not bad. We get into a lot of dogma with different phrases, right? And frozen food is a type of preserved food. Um, the rules of food preservation are not to use the worst. It is to use the best, the freshest,
Mhm.
and to pretty much lock it and seal it in the freshest state that it's in. So when you are buying frozen produce, you are buying something that was picked and harvested and processed very quickly, and frozen before it reaches you. Freezing it makes it shelf stable, makes it extends the life of your item, which is why we can get strawberries in December,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that they are inferior in nutrient density or quality of any kind.
Right.
It just means that you are getting something out of season, and I highly recommend that people do what is best for them in their pockets and their health.
Yeah.
And that for a lot of us, that means purchasing frozen fruits and vegetables.
Very, very well said. And I totally agree with that. And there's nothing wrong with mixing, you know.
Yeah.
I've been known to do that too. At my last conversation with Amy Katz, who was our last guest, we talked about um we talked about this very thing, like what's, the difference between frozen and then, you've got canned, which is a whole other side of things. There's a lot that goes into the canned stuff, and I'm very much a frozen proponent. And people always, I don't say always, but I've heard a lot of people compare frozen to canned, and I'm like, it's not the same
It's
thing.
totally not the same
Totally,
thing.
totally
And
not.
even canned isn't awful either. I have
Right.
similar feelings about canned. You just have to know how to pick the stuff. That's it.
Absolutely.
You just have to know
Absolutely.
what to get.
You
That's it.
do. You do. And so, just kind of going back to it's okay to mix, your ingredients. You using a little bit of fresh. You can use a little bit of canned, a little bit of frozen. I have this fried rice that I do when I get towards the end of the week, when I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I throw everything. And sometimes I will throw in that bag of frozen peas and frozen carrots that all the way stashed in the back of the freezer, honey. I'll pull that
Because
out
that's
and I'll
what
put
they
that in
do
there.
when you go and order it at the restaurant. I need
They
people to
sure do.
understand that all they're using are those frozen peas and carrots in their fried
Absolutely.
rice, and they're chopping up an onion and garlic and they're adding it to
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what they do when you order it in the store. So there should be no reason why you can't do that at home. I am a huge lover in leftover frozen fried rice. And what do I
Yes.
mean by that? Whatever is left in the fridge at the end of the week gets put in fried rice.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly what I do. I call it everything but the kitchen sink fried rice, and it goes over very well with my family. Stews as well, stews and soups, another really great thing to make with those leftovers. So okay, I'm glad we're on the same page with that, because I'm like, okay, let's see what she thinks about the frozen veggies. Or what about you? You mentioned you have the same feeling with the canned stuff. So can you dive into that a little bit? I know we're supposed to be talking about root to stem, but I love this conversation.
You just have to go where spirit leads you sometimes.
Yes, of
And
course. Hey, I'm
we're
learning to
right.
do that, honey.
We are right on time. When it comes to canned foods, I feel the same way. Canned foods are not inherently awful. What we need to do is look for the varieties that don't have lots of additives in them. Because when you can food at home, you need to put salt in it. You need to
Yeah.
put either citric acid in it, depending on what it is that you are
Mhm.
canning, right?
Okay.
And so you need those items to actually preserve the food, and they're very minimal in what's added. What is surprising to find is the amount of salt and even some cases the sugar that are in canned foods. So that is where you have to get discerning about which cans you purchase and how, so um, when we went to this space in time where there was this freshest best model, and it was like shop the outer perimeter of the store and don't go down the middle. Lots of people took for granted that most folks don't know how to make mayonnaise from scratch. That's in the middle.
Yeah. Yep.
They can't make mustard from scratch. That's in the middle. All of these other gray areas, diced tomatoes. I keep cans of diced tomatoes at home. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because my chili needs it. Some of my soups need it. My spaghetti sauce needs it.
Yep.
So what we're looking for is the low sodium varieties. And then in some cases, even when there is sodium, you can rinse the contents and strain them, and rinse it out in the case of beans and things like that. But I started to do something radical to some people, and that was I stopped rinsing it out. I did. You know
Oh,
why?
okay. Yeah. Tell us.
Because you're putting the salt back in when you rinse it out anyway, when you cook it.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even think of that. You're right. You are right.
If we tasted our food as we cooked it, we'd start to notice some things.
Yeah.
We would
Yeah.
really start to notice some things. And, oh, okay, that might be, I only need a pinch of salt. I only need a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And there are things that you can bring flavor into your dishes that I think are overlooked, like things that are in brine, vinegars, for instance, things like that that bring a saltiness and a depth of flavor to your foods. And you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that would do that. But I am a bean eater. I love beans. I know people look at
Me
beans like
too.
poor people food, and I really
Oh.
enjoy beans. But you can't can beans without salt.
Mm,
You
right.
don't do it. You don't do it at all. So am I going to rinse the salt off from the can to just put more salt back in to season my
Ma-
beans?
Makes sense. Makes
Now, I
sense.
mean,
I never thought of that.
if I don't want that particular consistency of the liquid that's left inside the can, then
Right.
that's a different reason and a different choice to rinse the beans.
Right.
But I don't know if you've seen like cooking shows where give it a little rinse, and then when they cook it, they're putting salt back in.
They're putting salt back in. And I'm one of those people. I didn't even think about that, and it's just one of those things that was just kind of ingrained in me. You need to rinse them. You need to rinse them. And then of
And then
course
there was
you
the
go to cook it
flavor.
and then you put the salt back in. So, hey,
Yeah, and then sometimes there was the flavor. Canned products are not what they used to be when our parents were
right.
young, and our grandparents, and so on and so forth. So I feel like we've gotten better about the way we process certain things and the way we package things.
Yeah.
So yes, BPA, it became a thing that we became aware of, and all these other chemicals. But once we started to get and make a shift and get better with removing those things, we don't need to rinse. Rinsing it was to rinse out that weird taste that was
Yes.
because of the way it was processed. And since
Right.
we don't process it that way anymore, we don't need to do that step.
Wow. Thank you for giving me permission. Wow, this is so awesome. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I love this conversation. I know we're supposed to be talking about root to stem, but hey, you know what? This is a conversation, and I think our listeners really would have been curious what your thoughts were since we talked about frozen veggies. So I'm like, okay, you got to talk about the canned stuff too. So I'm really glad we went there because, yeah, I've just been enlightened.
I
So
think a lot of times we have to give ourselves permission for a lot of things. So
you're
it's all
right.
good.
You're right. You are absolutely right, especially when it comes to cooking for our families. And I mean, a lot of what we do in a kitchen really has stemmed from, well, not for all of us, but some of us, from when we were little, right? Or watching, our parents or our, elders in the kitchen. And so a lot of that you remember, you don't really quite know where it comes from, but it comes from somewhere.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I really love that you said that. Um, let's talk a little bit about reducing food waste, because I know that's a really big part of um, root to stem and why I love root to stem so much.
Hmm.
But can you talk about, a little bit about, like, how do you balance the desire to, reduce food waste, but still you're wanting to create, delicious and visually appealing meals? Like, how do you balance the two?
This one is, I think, multifaceted, right? I think when it comes to reducing waste, oh, excuse me, and when it comes to reducing waste, we have to understand that it's a mindset.
Mm,
Once you decide that you're going to reduce waste, then you have to move accordingly. That means we don't need to peel off the first three layers of an onion.
mm,
I know we've seen it done before, right?
yep.
But we have to really question our every move as we make it and say, why did I take this off? Why did I take so much of it off? You
Mm,
know, in my classes, I teach, all of my students, like, take the bare tip off, like, you don't need to cut a half an inch into your vegetable in order to use it. Take that little piece off. It is a mindset that we have to get used to, saying that this doesn't look as uniform. This doesn't look a certain way. Root to stem sustainability has a different look, right? And I know that everybody right now, it's trendy to have these restaurant quality looking plates,
mm,
you know, but
right.
they don't know how much waste goes on in the kitchens that I have seen in my over 25 years in the business, what that looks like in real time. There's hundreds of pounds of food that goes in the bin every single week because you want to achieve a certain look.
Mm,
So it
wow.
has to start in the mind that you can make your plate look appealing and beautiful and gorgeous without having to obliterate your vegetables or your meats or anything else, right? It's just like making a decision that the only reason why I'm moving this stem is because it's a different texture than the rest of the plant. Well, why is that a bad thing? Unless you
Right.
have a texture aversion, because some people just do. But the majority of us don't have those types of texture aversions. It is literally just about the look and feel, and we have to decide, is it really that important?
Right.
Especially if
Right.
you're somebody like me, when you have discovered that it is the quality of the different textures on your plate that actually makes you feel more satisfied,
Mm, wow.
you know? So I
Yeah.
think it really boils down to understanding the mindset of waste. Also, the elephant in the room, and the reason why this discussion is multifaceted is, like, we don't have a very good nationwide system set up for composting, recycling, and trash.
Ooh. Yes.
So when you start to talk about not having as much waste, you forget that 90% of us don't live in counties and cities where there's a comprehensive, you know, setup for that. And even in the areas where we are composting and we are recycling and we are throwing away, we have to just trust that our waste management company is doing the right thing on the other side,
Right.
when they process it. Because I've seen and know, after working on a farm, it takes, a long time to make compost. It takes a long time to make soil. It takes a long time for things to break down. And when we start to think about the machinery that's being used in mass,
Right.
when we're like, are we really reducing waste? Are we really impacting globally in the way that we think we are if we're using machinery to do it?
Right.
So I think, and it's a place of privilege to be able to switch to all glass and not buy things in plastic. It's a place of privilege to be able to go to the store with your own bags and be able to use eco-friendly reusable bags to bag everything up. That takes more time. And we live in a capitalistic society where time is not something that most of us have a lot of if we have to work 2 jobs and raise families.
Absolutely.
So it's complex. It is complex, but I think every little bit does help. And the biggest step is don't cut all that off your onion and don't cut all that off your carrot. And, and try to learn to enjoy techniques and flavors and textures of the different parts of your vegetables and your meats so that you can start to use more of it and save more money. The
Mm,
other side of that coin is this. This was a big one for me to learn. We buy too much food when we buy it.
yes.
Why are you filling up your cabinets every single week? You got something in the back that you haven't seen in 7 months, but you keep putting more stuff in there.
Oh, yes. It just keeps on piling up too. Piling up, piling up.
hmm It keeps on piling up. And we don't we don't understand that what we're doing is hoarding, and our hoarding is likely, especially because I'm in my mid 40s, was encouraged by my grandparents because they lived through the Great Depression and
Right.
they raised my parents to fear not having things.
Right. It's that
So they started
scarcity.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
the scarcity mindset. So they would
Yeah.
purchase, just in case. And I remember
Right.
when I first started to reduce the amount I purchased, and my dad came over, he looked at my cabinet, he said, "You don't have any food." I said, "I have enough food for the next 2 weeks." And he was like, "What if something happens?" Well, God will make a way, won't he?
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Because
I
I
love it.
couldn't I couldn't see continuously spending that same $200, $300 over and over and over again
Right.
when the stuff would just go in the back of the fridge to die or live in
Right.
the back of the cabinet forever.
Wow. You are so right. And what you're saying completely resonates because I have to do a pulse check every once in a while here. I open up the, pantry and I'm like, wait a minute. We haven't touched any of this stuff. Okay, I'm not going to the grocery store. Y'all are eating what's in this refrigerator and what's in this pantry.
No, for real. Some of my favorite things to make now emerged from doing that.
Yeah,
From we got food at home mindset. Okay, what's in here? Because I'm not going anywhere, and I got to figure out what we're going to eat with what is already in this house.
that's right. Yep, the We've Got Food at Home challenge. I know we had talked about doing something like that. And hey, I have to challenge myself in our family a lot sometimes, because we do get into those ruts where it's just like, wait a minute, why am I doing this again? Like, why am I spending $200, $300 at the grocery store when we legit have like stuff in the back of that freezer, in that pantry? I could put stuff
Yeah,
together. My goodness, I'm a food blogger. We can make it do what it do. Okay.
exactly.
So yeah, I really love that you said that. And one thing that kind of, as you were talking, it really made me think of myself and my own practices as a food blogger. Part of being a food blogger is you post these beautiful pictures, right? These gorgeous pictures, but it's just like what you said, you don't know how much waste has gone into that. And so I've really changed my mindset to where I don't. I go out of my way, honestly, to use everything I possibly can. But what I don't use, either it goes in a compost pile, or I'm utilizing it in another dish, or I'm putting it, like I'm storing it in the fridge, and next time I make dinner, I put the rest of that onion in that. So it really forced me to take a step back, and to be strategic and mindful of what I'm doing to curate this content, because at the end of the day, it's content, but it's also I'm utilizing these resources, this food. And I just can't see food going to waste. It just does something to me. It makes
Right.
me really sad. So, I try to be mindful of it. I try to talk about it more now on my just on my channels, on my blog, because yes, the pictures are beautiful, but they're just pictures. And so I try to show real life pictures too, like, hey, this is what it looks like when you're utilizing everything. You're utilizing the entire carrot, the actual veggie, but then also the carrot tops. Or it's just like what you said with those collar stems. I'm chopping those collars and I'm putting the stems along with it. And then there are times where I may take out the stems, but I'm pickling them. So, and I share that with my audience now, because I feel like I have a personal responsibility to share that information. Yes, I know this looks uniform, but I took those stems and they're sitting in this jar. See, look at that. We're just snacking off of this. So I do feel
And
like
I
as
think
a
that's
creator,
the
it's part of
importance.
our
Yeah,
responsibility.
you're so right. It's important for you to show the behind the scenes.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things that I feel like I've connected with so much is the behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, um, we are folks who look to see what other people are doing to emulate it. That's what social media culture is, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not pictured, if it's not shared, it doesn't exist. And conceptually, I have an issue with that. It's kind of a strange thing. But at the same time, I also understand that we are in that era and that's what's needed. So,
Right.
some friends and I were having a conversation about how we were ready to see a shift and a change in the way that food is looking. Because since the pandemic, it's been looking real ashy. It's
Yeah.
been real, real ashy.
Not
Like,
ashy.
girl, the ash is strong. I don't know what has happened, but I needed to go back to 2019, 2018 looking food, because we have just gotten a bit outrageous, and the
Yeah.
waste is ridiculous. The seasoning profiles are ridiculous. It is at this level that is so unrealistic to continue to maintain, and it also it there's some innovation, but turning to some very basic stuff is what I would love to see.
Yeah.
I'm tired of all of the cheesy sauces.
Oh my goodness. Or the flaming hot. Oh girl. Remember that there was like a trend going around where they were putting the flaming hot, oh goodness, the flaming hot Cheetos or whatever on
Yes, on
everything.
everything, burritos.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. I'm like, what is
yeah.
this? What is
It's
happening right now?
the it's the flaming hot. It's the Hennessy. It's the
Yes.
I'm tired, and I need us to understand that while some things are fun to do occasionally,
Yeah.
we really have to have the mindset that that's just for fun occasionally, and
Yeah.
let us go back to some simple stuff. So I keep it
Yes.
simple. My stuff is just so simple. It's very basic.
But you know
I'm,
what? No, I just think let's just get back to the basics. That let's just get back to the basics. And just even going back to, you started off talking about, and maybe this was offline where we were chatting about how, like even our ancestors, came from a place of being the ones cultivating these crops, right? Um, you know, I feel like back when they were preparing food, it really was basic, and it really was plant-based, and it really was healthy. And you know what I mean?
Girl,
Like it was plant-based
yes.
before plant-based was a thing.
It didn't have to be a thing. Like,
Correct.
it's
Yes.
really, I really need us to grasp and fully understand 100% that the reasons that are being blamed on our health disparities at large by both the oppressors and the oppressed is false.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, systemic oppression is the reason for the health disparities.
Yes.
We are a people who ate plant root to stem and farm to table since the beginning of time. How could we not? We
Yes.
were the enslaved who cared for the land.
Right.
We
Right.
ate very well. We ate with minimal ingredients. We ate seasonally
Right.
because
Right.
we couldn't afford not to.
Absolutely.
So it's always a slap in the face when, we sit and we talk about what we know celebration food to be today. Shout out to Adrian Miller, who coined celebration food.
Yes.
Um, but we know soul food today, commercially, it's really celebration food.
Celebration food.
It's what we
Absolutely.
had at all of the big things. But in reality, we ate well.
Yes. And I think it's hard for people to distinguish the difference between the celebration food and, like your everyday meals. And we've gotten away from that. And so now the narrative is that, you know, all we eat is you know, the celebration foods, which
Right. And which
that's
they
not the
call
case.
typically when they're trying to insult us is they call it slave food, which
Slave
is
food.
also an
Hmm.
insult to our enslaved ancestors because that's not what they ate.
Right.
You know how much lard costs? They weren't frying chicken every day.
Chicken. Right. Right.
Chicken
Right.
was expensive.
Absolutely.
Meat was
Absolutely.
expensive to get
Yeah.
access to. They wasn't killing chickens every day. You know
That's
what it
right.
takes to kill a bird, to cook it, to eat it? I've done it. It's not a quick,
Right.
easy task.
That's right. That's right. Oh my
They didn't
goodness.
have time for that.
That's right. They really didn't. Yeah. Oh my goodness, girl. Yeah. You're definitely you're spot on with this. I love this conversation, and I can go on and
We
on.
totally went in
Uh,
a completely different direction, didn't
we
we?
did. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. I said when, I wanted to bring on, guests, I wanted to go away from the whole formal thing to just a conversation. And hey, wherever the conversation goes, that's where we go. And so I'm really loving this. And I feel like people need to hear this, right? And it's all intertwined. It really is, at the end
Hmm.
of the day. So I'm just glad we're having this conversation. And I can totally see you coming back for a part two, because there's just so much that I want to even
Yeah, we
go
didn't even get
into.
into the sustainability of meat. Now that gets people going.
Exactly, exactly. So, okay, that'll be part two. That will definitely be part two. I did want to ask, because we love to share recipes around here. Did you have a root to stem recipe that you wanted to share with our community?
I
If
would
not,
love to
we can always
share
put
the
something
sweet
in the show notes.
potatoes. Yes, yes, the sweet potatoes.
Perfect.
Um, yeah, with the leaves and the potato.
Yes. Okay. So I'm totally going to make that. And I'm definitely going to put, all of that information in the show notes, because look, I'm trying to think if I've ever had the sweet potato leaves. I don't think I've had the sweet potato leaves, but I've heard they're absolutely amazing. And speaking of sweet potatoes, um, sweet potatoes were on, I don't know if it was just like a flash. They were trying to get rid of a whole bunch of them in my local grocery store, but they were like, gosh, 30-40 cents a pound the other day. And
What?
yeah, one of
You
my
gotta
neighbors
be
is just like,
kidding me.
yes, my neighbor, she was like, oh girl, did you see they're like, 30-40 cents a pound at Publix. You need to go up there. So of course, I dropped everything I was doing and I went right on up to the up to the grocery store, and I just got a whole bunch. And I'm starting sweet potato slips. So it's just
Nice.
little simple things like that. You can get a bunch. I mean, goodness, that was less than a pack of seeds.
So
You know what
you
I mean?
also can freeze the potatoes
Yep,
if you chop them up. Don't peel
absolutely.
them, wash them really well, dry them, and then chop them, like dice them up,
That's
and
a
then
Yeah, that's a great idea.
freeze them in freezer bags, and you can throw those in soups and stews,
Oh, yes.
and make mashed sweet potatoes. You can use it for your pies, like all the things. So yeah.
Oh, all the things. Yes, yes, that's a really, really great suggestion. But, just little things, and I try to do little things that, impact what I'm trying to do here. And, I think if each one of us take a step, it does make an impact. But it's conversations like these, I feel like, and what you're doing, with the students and pouring into them and showing them the way. I think that is really the ultimate, um, just trying to get to that goal of just educating more people about it, educating people. You do have the power. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just doing our part in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So,
it.
before we wrap up, I did want to ask you for the home cooks out there, because we have a lot of home cooks that listen to this podcast. What are just some simple ways or techniques they can start utilizing and just incorporating root to stem cooking in their own homes? Just simple little steps that they can do.
What I love to do is I love to regrow my green onions.
Okay. Yep.
You
Those are
can
pretty easy.
yeah, when you have some green onions and they still have the little arms on the end at the white tops, you can put
Hmm.
that in some water on your countertop and regrow those. And then if the roots are long enough, you can put them in the ground afterwards in a pot if you want to do that. But really, really, really just start by scrub washing your vegetables so you don't have to peel them as much. I do that a lot. I have really terry cloth, like white towels in my kitchen that get bleached. And when I cook with potatoes and carrots, especially the root vegetables, I
Hmm.
scrub them, and that helps reduce the waste, so you're not
Oh,
peeling. A lot of people don't have vegetable peelers at home. I think you
right.
should have one, but if you don't, I know they're using paring knives to peel their vegetables. So if you're using a paring knife and you end up chopping too much of your veg off, then just start scrubbing your veggies with an
Oh,
actual towel and cold water to get them nice and clean. And then you can eat the skins, which also have lots of health benefits for the root vegetables, especially if grown in good soil. Um, and look for the veggies that still have the tops to them. Get the whole veg and move from there. Your herbs that have the more woody stems, you can actually sit in some cooking oil, in your olive oil, to infuse flavor before you get rid of them, because if they're too woody to eat, like rosemary gets a little tough, right?
hmm hmm
Um, you can put a rosemary stem in oil, let it sit for a day or so, pull it out, and then you have rosemary oil. And you've extracted all of that goodness from the stem itself. If you leave it in too long, it gets bitter, so you don't want to keep
right.
doing that. But then you keep it in the fridge and use it as needed.
Love it. Those are some really great tips and easy tips, right? Like, it's something that won't take too much time and
Hmm.
very, very simple to do. So thank you for sharing those. It's amazing. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. Chef, can you tell us a little bit? What do you have coming up? Are there any special projects, cookbooks?
Oh,
What's going
yes,
on?
yes, yes. Um, um,
Classes?
in the next couple of weeks, I will be releasing my 30-day wellness journal.
Oh,
I am really excited about that because I feel like the wellness journal is your start to looking at your health and wellness in a very dynamic way. And it's a place for those who have chronic illnesses like type 2 diabetes or hypertension to be able to log their numbers. I noticed that somebody who had frequent issues, health issues to work out, that when I would go to the doctor, I would forget little details.
mm,
And, especially when I was dealing with needing foot surgery and knee surgery. Well, how did I feel on this day? Where's my pain level? How many times in a week or a month have I had instances of pain and things like that? Because you start to move on autopilot. So my
yeah.
wellness journal is a way for you to collect that snapshot of your overall health and wellness, so that you can use it as a tool when you see a primary care physician. And of course, I do it in such a Black Girl Magic way that the journal prompts of the journal all have a song attached to it. Um,
Oh my goodness.
so you can essentially create a playlist, if you will, for the 30 days of songs that are accompanied with the journal prompts. And, you can consider it a sort of shadow work type of activity. Because I really do believe that our physical health is not disconnected from our mental and emotional health. I know I use a double negative, but that's,
That's okay.
AAVE, how we do. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's totally connected. Mind, body, spirit is all connected. And when we start to approach our health from that perspective, instead of trying to isolate weight loss here or that there, then we get better results. So that's the biggest thing coming up. And then I am working on two workshops that will be available in the fall, preferably in by September, and that is food justice for young people, young adults, teens,
Mm.
and young adults. And then a workshop on healing and wellness for those who have chronic illnesses, physical disabilities, and or neurodivergent
Wow. Oh, so exciting. Some
BIPOC.
good work coming down the pipeline. And I'm so excited for you. I need that wellness journal. So where can we go to, keep in touch with you and to get all the information about all the good stuff you have coming up?
So the easiest place is Instagram or Twitter. That's where my socials are, where I drop everything. As soon as something is ready, I put it on there. So Instagram, I am the Oakland Girl, and then on Twitter, it's Chef Liesha, Oakland Girl. So both places get all of those drops first, but my digital products are on chefliesha.com. And any requests for like workshops in my new upcoming YouTube series, like, yeah, I'm doing that too. I don't know when it's going to happen. and my spice and tea line is on the oaklandgirl.com. So
Oh,
those
wow.
are the two places where you can find out all the upcoming things. Yes, I'm type A. Yes, I do too much, but I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because when you are called to do a thing, God
Mm,
equips you with what you need to make it happen.
mm. Now that's a word. That is a word. Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. So that right there, I think I'm going to end it right there because I can't beat that. Yes, those are true facts. But no, I feel like when you're doing what you need to be doing and what you're called to do, it's just like what you said. He will make a way. And that's exactly what's happening right now. You are impacting so many people. Um, from it runs the gamut from young people to us more seasoned people.
I like the way you put that.
Yes. So I love everything you're doing. I'm definitely you got a fan of me. And so I will definitely include all of your links in the show notes. So those of you listening, definitely check out all of the links. I'll include her socials, the website, all that good stuff. But again, I wanted to thank you so much, Chef Liesha, for just taking the time to just have this discussion. And I definitely look forward to part two.
Yes, yes, we got to get into it.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a blessed one.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Cook the Garden. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. As a new podcast, it really helps to add value while growing our awesome community. As always, I really appreciate it. Until next time, friends, keep slaying those garden fresh recipes.